Well, here we are again with Ask Dr. Mary, special edition of Coping with COVID. Dr. Mary, thank you so much for being with us and helping
You're
navigate
welcome.
this journey. It's been a
Mhm.
tricky time for us, hasn't it?
Oh, yes, it has been for sure.
Well, one of the areas that we're all experiencing is our work lives have been turned upside down for many people. There's some
Mhm.
people who are on the front line, so they're out working and facing work in a different way. And then there's many of us who are working from home and experience maybe you're home with kids or multiple family members. In our house, there's a new puppy, so that's been a new experience. I'm used to working from home, so that is not so new for me. But just feeling the pressure of you don't get to go out to the gym, you don't get to go out for dinner,
Mhm.
everything is at home. And
Mhm.
it's giving an opportunity. There's some benefits from working from home, but there's also some challenges for us. So
Yeah.
let's talk about working from home first. What's your advice to those of us who are working from home?
Well, I've been watching friends who work from home, and I have worked from home for a long time. So I've had to figure out what my rhythm is. But I'd say two things, and they're kind of two things on the opposite end of the spectrum. So on the one hand, have really, really good boundaries. Part of the challenge when you're working from home, especially if you don't have a space that's set aside, is life, home, and work just kind of meld together. So I'm hearing from a lot of friends that they're working till 9 at night. When the phone goes off, they go to deal with it. So I would suggest that if it's possible, have a room that's just set aside for you, and that's the work room. And even if it's part of your bedroom, it's just the work corner. And you know that if you're walking there, you're doing work. And then have kind of pretty much set work hours that you work. And when that time is up, you turn off your phone and all the notifications, and you go back and you do normal home life. So that's the
Yeah.
one end of it when you are busy and it's just like the work just keeps coming.
I
The other
totally
extreme,
agree. Yeah, totally agree,
yeah.
Mary. I've had to put those boundaries in after years of working from home, a
Hmm.
designated space and designated time.
Yeah,
So important. You're right. It bleeds
yeah.
into everything else. Yeah,
It
go ahead.
does.
What
It
else?
does.
What? Yeah.
And then on the other end of the extreme, during this time of the pandemic, many people are finding that they can't do a lot of their work functions. Myself is one of them. And
Right.
the other end of it is when you're not able to be as productive or busy as you normally are, it's hard not to struggle with feeling guilty. That's how I feel. Like I'm not doing enough, or I'm shortchanging my organization, and there's so much that has to be done. And look at all the frontline workers, and they're giving up so much, and I need to be doing the same thing. What I've had to work through with being less busy, because a lot of the tasks I do, I cannot do from home, is just wrestling through the feelings of guilt. I feel like I'm letting everybody down. And I feel like maybe I'm taking advantage of my organization. So if I have the space where I get to sit back and read a book, I should be
Right.
working.
Right.
And I also feel
Yeah.
bad because I hear my friends and they're working like dogs and I'm not. So it's the
Right.
two extremes, and being able to accept that this is all part of the new normal. And how do I find my rhythm in that? And how do I, in the latter, work through my guilt and do what I can do to the best of my ability, and then to just enjoy the space of time that I actually have to slow down and to rest.
That's really good,
So that,
Mary. I'd identify with you, although I've been finishing up a master's degree and working, so I haven't had time to feel guilty yet,
right.
but maybe I'll get there. Anyway, what about those on the front lines, people who are actually facing a
Mhm.
completely other world? Maybe they're overworking, they're under a lot of stress. What do you have to say to them? And first of
Yeah.
all, I want to say thank you to our frontline workers.
I
We are
want to
so
say that
grateful.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. The unsung heroes, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say five things to them. And some of them are going to be similar to what I've already said before about the self care, but specifically for them, they need to go above and beyond to be very transparent with their family and friends about how they're doing. Um, that whole sense of I'm on my own, nobody understands it. Reach out for that support. And even though they can't physically do anything for you, they can certainly emotionally support you and spiritually pray for you. So be very, very transparent. Don't try to protect them. Don't be the superhero here. And the second thing I would say is to actually stay away from too much of the news or social media. I mean, they're front line seeing the reality of what this pandemic is doing. And our brain does not do well being exposed constantly to negative information. So aside from work, fill your mind with things that are uplifting and joy bringing and make you laugh, and just let that go. So that's the second thing. The third
That's
thing is
good.
to really pay attention to your own emotions and stress. And so it's like caregivers, they always put themselves last on the totem pole of what they're looking at. So really, every single day in the morning, how am I doing emotionally? How am I doing physically? And then do the same thing at the end of the day and take steps to take care of themselves. And then number four, have extremely strong boundaries. Right now, everything is getting your work done. So when you're not working, provided you have the freedom to, depends on kids and family and all that, rest, lots of rest, radical self-acceptance. Don't expect more of yourself. You're just trying to get through work with your sanity intact. So lots of self-acceptance. And, and then finally, in their busyness, especially when they're on call, they can kind of get away from the regular quiet time with God. And I do realize, I mean, there's a lot of grace with that, but I know for myself, if I don't spend my daily quiet time with the Lord, I'm like a mess. So it's just being able to anchor it. It could be in the shower, on the way to work. It doesn't have to be a formalized way, but just to be able to quiet myself enough, replug back into the source of life and peace and power. I think that's really, really important to do that.
Oh, I agree, Mary. Thank you. That's really good practical advice, whether you're working from home or you're working outside of your home during this time. Just a quick thought. I mean, we're not trying to be, forecast anything in the future here, but what do you think how this might change work moving forward?
I think it will. People are starting to get comfortable with working from home, the fluidity of our work schedule. I know there's already some organizations that they don't even give specific vacation time or workday time. All they give them are projects. As long as the projects are done on time and to quality standards, you manage it how you'd like, whether it's from home or in the office. So I think that we're going to see more and more of that fluid type of work life.
I think so too. And studies were done even before the pandemic that the 9 to 5 workday is long gone, especially the millennial and the younger generation. They want flexibility more than anything else. Yeah. And I've heard from a lot of people who are saving costs on commuting to work and the time that you spend commuting, the expense of commuting. There's people who have taken insurance off their cars because they're sitting in the garage. I know many people who are actually saving money during this time period. So we may look at doing life differently moving forward for sure. One final thought then, you mentioned about getting close to the Lord. Is there anything the Lord's been telling you specifically, or a special verse he's given you during this time?
Well, one of my all-time favorite verses has always been Romans 8:28. I have struggled with anxiety for a lot of my life growing up, and I like to be in control. And that, of course, is not possible. So when I can say to myself that God has promised to use everything for good in my life, even my mess ups, even my worst mistakes, even my sin, he's promised to use it for good in my life. It just settles my spirit. So that has been a very powerful verse during this time where there's so much uncertainty going on.
That's a good reminder to all of us that God does work out his good purposes in difficult things in our life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? Exactly. Thank you, Dr. Mary. You hang in there. I know that you're more than hanging in there, but thank you for helping us again. We're going to talk to you again next week. God bless you. Don't forget to go online, 700club.ca, and find the downloadable free resource, the Coronavirus Anxiety Workbook that you can work through, and that might give you a tool and a resource to help you. Also, Dr. Mary's podcast, it's wonderful, The Fully Lived Life, and it's so inspiring. It's another great tool to put in your tool belt now. Thanks for watching. We'll be right back.